David Goggins. So I'll bring him up because he's not super well liked in the community.
Jocko comes in that he thought that the only way that he could beat their record is getting more kills. And so it became a body count. First thing, Jocko, failed as a SEAL leader on the battlefield.
My swim buddies, they die every single year. Do you have any idea what that means?
Because that is one of the worst representations of the SEAL community possible.
That guy.
Yeah, he needs to shut the up.
Over the past year, we have seen an immense increase in hate, discontent, separation within the Navy SEAL community that has been pretty fragmented because of the proliferation of Navy SEAL veteran influencers. And this is because previously after the pullout from Afghanistan and all that stuff, there was not this culture or entity that we have in today's current society where people have books, podcasts, programs, whatever else that they're trying to sell based on the ideologies of being a SEAL or based on the backs of being a SEAL. And a lot of people think that this is selling the trident or scraping the gold off the trident, essentially to obtain personal gain, even though they are now in veteran status and not acting in an active duty capacity using their official place of office, which would break ethics within the Department of Defense. We saw back about a year ago, David Goggins and Dan Crenshaw, the Republican from Texas, feud. Then we saw Andy Stump and Jimmy Watson Jr., the TikTok Navy SEAL. And then most recently, various Marines and Navy SEALs and a Green Beret that has a YouTube channel that came together to post videos over alleged war crimes in Iraq against Jocko Willink. Now, another person weighing in on this is 3 of 7 YouTube channel featuring a former Navy SEAL, Chad Wright, who's weighed in on the speculation as to why this might have occurred and unfolded the way that it did.
It seems to be the latest trend here on social media for veterans to come out and try to shame and attack other veterans, to nitpick their stories, to try to put them down for past mistakes or failures or things like that. It's really, really prevalent on social media. Most of you guys have probably been exposed to it. And you're probably wondering, why the crap are these guys doing this to each other? Well, you're getting a firsthand look into a really, really broken culture, right? And that is the culture within the military. First of all, when there's no mission, when there's no war, when there's no task and purpose, it's kind of what guys end up doing, is fighting each other, attacking each other, and eating their own. So there's your firsthand look into that culture.
I believe this cultural shift with the Navy SEALs of task and purpose is essentially something that is not just unique to Navy SEALs. And if anything, I would say the Navy SEALs, from the stories that have been shared, it sounds like their task and purpose was very different during OIF and OEF than what they're actually trained to do anyway. So in my mind, this task and purpose issue is a issue across not only the Special Operations Commands, across the board, it's across conventional forces as well, as you saw people talking about this from all facets, from Marines to Navy to Air Force or whatever else, while they were in Afghanistan during that pullout, and saying what those emotions were as they came up. One super great example of this was Stuart Scheller. And on top of that, this change from Afghanistan, I think, has created a quick shift that nobody was anticipating or expecting. And we're seeing some of the dust settle as far as that continues to kind of see what the new task is and what the new purpose is.
David Goggins, guys like Jocko, guys like Marcus Luttrell, a lot of hate gets directed at them, right? Because they have just reached this level of success that's never been seen before. Those guys are on a whole nother level than I'm on. They've worked their freaking butts off, man. They've all made millions of dollars, and they've positively impacted the lives of millions of people. But a lot of hate gets directed at them from the veteran community and other guys within the same communities where they served. Most specifically, the Naval Special Operations community. Why is that freaking happening? All right. A lot of you think that is jealousy. It's not jealousy. The guys that are coming out and bashing these dudes are simply stuck in the same culture that they grew up in the military. They're stuck in that same culture, that same way of thinking. Understand, one of the military's most effective ways of retaining their members is by convincing guys who are serving that what they do in the military is the pinnacle of their life. What they do in the military is the Super Bowl. That nothing they will ever be able to do outside of the military is going to be as good as what the military allows them to do. That culture brainwashes you into thinking that way. Trust me, I know, I was there. I've also been subject to this culture. I bought into it. I believed it. When guys spend their whole lives in the military, or half their life in the military, and they get out and they go on to create something freaking off the chain, they go on to become super wealthy, make the world a better place, create an amazing business, and they get a lot of traction. That culture hates them, right? Because that culture says, there's no way he could have done that. The only way that guy is so successful, any of those three guys I named earlier, what the special operations culture looks at when they see them, what they think is they say the only reason those guys were able to be that successful is because they basically just sold out, man. They're pimping out their trident. They're pimping out their military service for personal gain.
I would like to take this a step further than what he is talking about here and saying that this is inherently an issue with the Navy SEAL community because they are so team-oriented that understanding that when you're a part of a team that is that cohesive, essentially your job is to be as good at this one task-oriented position that you are expected to do that could lead to life or death, and anything outside of that is essentially just a distraction. And I believe part of that is having the identity for a lot of you guys outside of the military and looking forward of like, I have a new task or a new purpose that is yourself, which I think a lot of people, when they're in the military, they don't realize how much they think of a team aspect, even conventional forces, that when they leave, they're like, I only have to care about myself. That's really weird and is a huge adjustment because we are taught kind of like that extreme ownership that Jocko talks about where anything below you is your fault. And so kind of understanding that it's not always your fault and having a healthy balance of that extreme ownership can be quite difficult.
If you buy into a culture that hates an individual for leveraging their life experience in order to create something new for themselves, if you've got a guy who spends his whole adult life serving his country, and then he gets out of the military and he doesn't talk about the lessons that he learned while he was in. He doesn't talk about his literal life experience. What else is he going to talk about? What else is he going to teach from? What else is he going to build off of? Nothing. This thinking is this thinking right here is contributing, by the way, to these high numbers of veteran suicide. This way of thinking is contributing to the fact that veterans get out of the military and they end up homeless, or they end up depressed, or they just lock themselves in their house and never freaking come out. Because they've been brainwashed by this culture that says when you get out of here, you better not use your life experience to go on and create something bigger and better than what you experienced here. And if you do that, you're just a sellout. Well, dang, if I go out here and leverage my life experience in order to create something new for myself and for my family, then my old teammates are going to hate me. I tell a story about something that a lesson that I learned 20 years ago, and I don't get every single detail right because maybe I don't remember it perfectly, or maybe they remember it differently than I did. Well, I'm afraid that the next thing that I know, they're going to come out and attack me for something. Maybe I didn't even mean for it to be wrong. Maybe it's just the way I remembered it.
This is a massive issue, and why I'm linking Mr. Ballen with all this. He does talk about it as well, in agreement with this guy. But I say Mr. Ballen because John is his first name, by the way. He is a person that was already annotating this on LinkedIn and stuff like that in podcast interviews, where he was trying to link military special operations veterans with these high-level Fortune 500 companies to show that they had great soft skills that would be highly valuable to build teams and, learn skills and things like that, where he was like, these people were so humble that essentially they were not going to be able to be employed because all they could do is law enforcement type stuff or be seen as just, oh, you're a Navy SEAL. So anything outside of that is not essentially as important.
There are a lot of great things about culture and special operations, but there are a lot of really ugly things too. And when you hear a guy like Goggins talk about his experience with culture in the SEAL teams, I've heard him talk about it. He's telling the truth. But nobody else tells it the way he tells it. Because most of us have been brainwashed or programmed into protecting the reputation of those organizations at all costs. And so most of us won't be real with you about the way it is.
The Navy SEAL culture has really been on the rocks. We have to discuss a couple of things, whether that be the drug use, whether that be the war crimes. By the way, these are allegations. You got to think of Eddie Gallagher in his case and even the Jocko case of where people are talking about this as well. And this also could include starring in adult films, by the way. That one did not end up on this channel, but I found that one quite interesting. Unfortunately, even though he says Goggins here is an unfiltered character that essentially tells the truth of the Navy SEAL teams, and I appreciate that, he's also a person that has been outed by the Navy SEAL teams and the guys that have this traditional mindset that essentially he went to the idea of another path as a influencer of Navy SEAL veterans. And this is because he talks about mindset and mental strength and fortitude and stuff like that, where every other Navy SEAL kind of focus on tactics, techniques, and those aspects of being a Navy SEAL that were probably more traditional.
That these people who are coming out and attacking guys like Jocko and David and Marcus, and these guys who are coming out and freaking trying to shame them and nitpick them and all this stuff, man, you don't even know them, dude. You don't know who they, you don't even know who they are. It's amazing how there's this false reality that's been created that we think that we know other people based off of the little snippets of them we see on social media. And we think we know them well enough to comment on their character, to comment on who they are today. Maybe you used to know them, but I guarantee you don't still know them. You don't still spend time with them. You don't still work with them. You don't still see them on a regular basis. And you know what's unique about people? People change. So if you knew somebody a long time ago and maybe they made some mistakes, maybe they weren't the most upstanding person, did you ever think maybe they're not that way anymore? Maybe they lived and learned and changed.
I agree with him on this aspect. However, we know that there is a fog of war, and sometimes that dust settles and essentially new information can come out, new facts can be exposed, people kind of connect the dots and things like that, where essentially you're not going to be able to do that during battle and kind of trying to do that, and maybe there's so much kinetic activity going on that can be quite difficult. I also do agree that it is important to go back and look at these facts because we should be trying to get history accurate. And if we're not doing that and the people aren't telling their stories, for example, from Vietnam, that can be quite difficult and their version of it. And sometimes that might be at the expense of someone else not looking as good that we thought was good. And that's, I'm not saying cancel everybody, but I'm going to say it is important to address things and kind of bring stuff back up because it is important to revisit. And I would say, especially if the case is over alleged war crimes that people are talking about this. So my thoughts on this are like, I don't want to just condone cancel culture, but I think there are ways that we can address this in a professional way, which I will talk about very soon.
Well, the solution is to realize you were part of a culture that's broken. Fix yourself. You're now a part of something different. And if you want to be successful, you better change a few things about the way you act and about the way you talk. How about you realize that it's not your job to hold other people accountable? That's not your freaking job, man. You don't know the whole freaking story behind anybody's life. You don't know the context. You don't know the whole circumstance. You don't freaking know, man. It ain't your job to hold people accountable. And you're a fool if you want to try to carry that burden.
Yes, I agree that you should focus on moving forward and things like that. However, if you have facts, information that would bring things to light that you think are important, because we're talking about humanity here, and you got to win hearts and minds a little bit. And I think if we're looking to hold our status in the geopolitical sphere, that's kind of important. And I would also say it's important to use official channels, but if any of you guys have worked in the military government sector, you know the bureaucracy that is there to go through those levels of that in order to make sure you're heard can be quite difficult. And on top of that, I will say we don't know the competing factors of the people that are being reported to, if they have any other bias or any sort of ulterior motives that they are wanting to not report those things, right? Like that could take a long time to discover those things. And I think that's important to annotate here as well. Now, Mr. Ballen did watch this video, and I think it starts with him because he was looking to do connection of veterans from the start, and this is what he had to say. Thank you for speaking up about this, Chad. Definitely have been part of this negativity when I was in, and definitely felt the sharp end of this when I left the military. I don't resent anyone. I just worry it's never going to stop. Videos like this are from people like you will make a difference, so I got your back, brother. And says, also, I can't believe this is a single take. You're way too good, man. Take care. As we are getting more perspectives from all the Navy SEALs that have been out there that served during OAF, I think it's becoming harder to address all of these things and seeing what's factual and what isn't, because, it's been so many years later where a lot of it could be, fragmented memory, could be a lot of things that those facts can't be addressed or proven necessarily because it's been so long, for example. But I will say that the veteran Navy SEAL community is definitely having some kind of identity crisis, I would say, in certain aspects. And it's understandable because this is the fog of war that I think we're seeing unfold here. However, I will let you guys be the assessors of what is going on here. And I'm going to ask you guys to continue the conversation down in the comments below, because I think that's where this continues, as I know a lot of you guys have come back to watch these videos. As always, if you guys do like what I cover on the channel, hit me up over on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.